Hello, this is a Twine introduction video, and today I will be going over one of the projects that I've made in Twine, a bit about how I made it and some of the core mechanics behind what I used to make it. And in the next video, I will be going in depth onto making your own Twine project from scratch. So let's just open this up. So as you can see, this is a node-based system. And this may not be familiar for you, so I'll kind of make it easier for you to understand real quick. So this is where you start, and if you hit the what's it called, the build, and then hit play, you'll automatically start from the starting location here, and you'll always start with the node that's connecting to the starting location. In this case, it's the introduction node, and this introduction node says, "It's a January up in the land of the lakes, state of Minnesota, where the worst of the cold weather is still yet to come." And I'll get to all of the rest of the stuff here, but let's just see what this looks like. So let's go into passage and then click test from here. And then we'll see we open up this new screen here. They also include a console in the bottom here for debugging purposes, but we can close it out for now. So as you can see, we have a background image, we have text here, and we can click on this link. And this link allows you to go to the next page. And in Twine, you'll notice that the next page is actually just another node. So the text that you see here saying you've been sent to this abandoned chemistry lab, that's just this text right here. And you can keep clicking on all these different links, leading you to different paths. If we want to question who is talking to us, we would figure out that this is the narrator. If we keep going, there's a lot more other things here. Like, are you paying me for this? Oh, that's a good point. And anything else, other things about the storyline, all that kind of jazz. So I'll now dive into a bit about the different mechanics behind how I made it look like this, and how to make your own game in Twine. So the main thing about Twine is the system where you can go between nodes. So if you see these little arrows here, that means if I'm starting at this node, I am able to, and if I hit test from here, I'm able to click on a link that will lead me to the next node, which is this one right here. In this case, this link is called "Why Am I Here?", which is literally the title of the next node, which is pretty convenient for us. And when I click on that, I am immediately put onto the next page. Now, there's a lot of different things I've put here, and these are what we call variables in Twine. Currently, I set all the variables that we are going to need to use as false, as in the future, we will need to set them to true when we have opened up a node of some sort, but we will also get to that in the future. So in order to create a new link to get to another page, we have to use this notation: double brackets, and then the name of the node you want to go to. And one of the things that you can do is you can create nodes in this way as well. You can do double bracket, and then let's just say a node page. So let's say new node 1, and then double brackets. And you'll see it creates a new node here. And we can add, we can just say placeholder text, just so that we can see it when we actually get in the game. And if we test from here, we'll see that there is a new node link. We can click on this, and look at that. There's placeholder text. Going back into the editor, we can actually delete the new node because we will no longer need this, just for testing purposes. And since it doesn't actually delete the node itself, we can just go ahead and double click into this and then delete this text. And I believe it will delete itself. But there's another way to delete it, but oh yeah, and that's actually just going to be right up here. Hit the delete button, and there you go, it's gone. All right, now on to the next one. So we have "Why Am I Here?", pretty generic stuff. We've pretty much just got a text line here, and then the link is within the text, So it's an inline link because previously the link was like a bit after the text, but that's just because of where the spacing was in the actual body. So right here, the link is right inside of or on the same line as the previous text. And once you click on the reason button, you get to this node here. And then all this jazz, pretty familiar stuff. But now there's two options here. You get to the who are you node or the what do I already know node. And as you can see, all these nodes are color coordinated here. And this refers to their tags, but I'll get to that in just a moment. Currently, I will be going over the variables. So going into the who are you? Okay, we haven't encountered our first variable yet. Okay, now here we go. We can pause here and figure out what's kind of going on here. So if I go into if I hit test from here, you'll notice that, oh, well, actually, okay, maybe this isn't the best example. 1 second, let me test from the beginning real quick. So when I test from the beginning, I set all of the variables to false. But this also means I set these variables to anything, because without these lines, without these lines here, the variable doesn't actually exist. So let me just new browser here. So yeah, and so yeah, that's one of the reasons that I like to always start from the beginning, just so that I actually have all the variables that I need to use in the future. So starting from here, I can see that all the variables here are set to false. And if I keep going, I hit why am I here, go into reason, and I want to end up in this node here. What do I already know? So I'll hit reason and then hit what do I already know. And if I click this, and then you'll see all these three options appear. And what this means is that as long as this variable is false, this will appear. And you may be wondering, well, when does this variable become true? And this variable becomes true once I have completed the conversation root, once I've started this conversation, which pretty much means, okay, if I say, are you paying me for this? Then I go into the next node here, and then I go into the next node here, and then I hit the next node here. You'll see at the end, at the conclusion of this conversation, I set this variable to true, and then I do a little thing called, I believe the terminology is piping, because you are pretty much saying, okay, you want to go to a node that is called what do I already know. However, in the game, you want it to have appeared as the text back. And I'll show you exactly what this looks like. So if I hit, are you paying me for this? And this only appears if the variable pay root is set to false. So yes, are you paying me for this? And then I hit, okay, yes. And then I hit understood. And as you can see, back is also is pre-highlighted, which means you've already visited this page, which is good because we do want to go back to the previous page. So if you hit back, you'll see that this line is no longer here. It's gone. I can no longer click on this. And that's because this variable down here, pay root, was set to true. And it'll be the same thing with the next link here. As you see from this node, this is going to be called the figure it out root. And pretty much same sequence. Once I end the conversation here, and all it does is go to the, what was the incident that occurred, which is right here. And as soon as I get to the screen, I set this variable to true. And when I get back, you'll see it removes it, which means that the variable that this refers to is now true, because it's only going to show if it's false. All right. That's a brief introduction to disappearing links, and I guess also reappearing links if you want to bring them back into the game. So another thing that I will also bring up is the background. Now, normally this game doesn't have a background. Normally the background is just a black screen. And I believe I can actually show you what that looks like. But a bit of background into the background is that we will be using CSS, which is a coding language that is used directly with HTML and JavaScript. And in my opinion, it's pretty somewhat simple to use. It doesn't take too much like documentation to understand all the different things going on. And for what you'll mainly be doing, I'm not too sure if you will really need to know it fully. But yeah, let's just get into exactly the code that I use for this project. So we're going to go into Twine. Oh no, actually, we're going to go into Story. And then we're going to click on the Style Sheet button here. And this is going to bring up the Story Style Sheet. And as you can see, there's a lot of text here, but I'll make it pretty simple for you to understand. So if I go to the top part here, and okay, so there's a lot of different keywords here, but the first one you'll see is called TW story. What this means is TW story is like the element that we're working with. If I hit something like body, right, this would be the text. This would be the text that we're working with. But I don't want to edit the background for the text, because that will just change the text on its own. I want to change the background of the whole entire page. And inside of Twine, they have set that element to be named TW-story. And another thing that you'll need to be cautious of when you're working with the style sheet is things called story formats. Now, I'm able to use TW story because of the current story format that I'm working with, and it's set by default, so you don't have to worry about reswitching it. But if you scroll down here, I'm currently using the Harlow 339, but these numbers don't really matter as long as it's Harlow and it says use as default story format. As long as these two things are set to true, you should be able to use the TW story. All right, so let me exit out of that. Okay, next up, so these little brackets are pretty much so that we are able to show exactly what kinds of things we want to change in the element we're working with. So since we're working with the element TW story, we want to change the background image of this element. But since this element is the entire story, we're pretty much changing a property of the whole entire thing. In which case, we're changing the background image of the whole thing. And this background image, I guess I'll copy paste it into a Google search browser. You'll see it comes up with the exact image that we have in our game. So this is going to be the base image. Now, if I hit start inside of, or start from the introduction, you'll notice that the little guy doesn't appear here, right? Because we're only working with this image. We're not working with any other images. But a way that I was able to have it so that I spawn this little dude and I have him in different parts of the screen is I pretty much just modified this image and I drew a little stick figure over it, and I drew different facial expressions, different gestures that this stick figure has, and I created those into separate images. Now, each of these images is stored into a folder, and this folder is adjacent to the HTML file that you have, that you pretty much have for the game. So if I hit test from here, you'll see that it always will say like it'll always have like this as the link, which is pretty much your local file on your computer. So if I find that really quickly, this is this is pretty much exactly where the this HTML is found. It does create a lot of separate Scratch files that are dependent on whenever you hit the test button. And of course, you can also go into just stories here and then just click environmental game, and this is going to be the game. And this will be like the latest version always. But the main thing about the use of the Scratch and the use of the different files here is just so that they can help you like revert back to old versions of the game if you need to do so. So as you can see, I have previous versions of this game still on here. And if I open up one of these, you'll see that the background is, yeah, it's just a black background. And this is actually going to be how it looks like if you don't have the a custom background image. But yeah, so yes, I believe, yes, that is how you add a background image to all of the nodes in your game. But if you want to select certain images for certain nodes, you can use this popular method that I have found, and it's pretty much called tags. So each of these nodes has a tag, right? This tag is called intro. This tag is called interesting. And I named a lot of these tags based off of expressions, right? Gestures, right? So if I go back to the file explorer and I'll go back to the images here, right? A lot of these different images, they capture an expression, right? This is someone thinking. This guy's like, oh, that's interesting. Or this guy's angry. Or this guy's like, it's whatever. So I tried to tie each of these images to a particular tag. And and that pretty much means whenever we are on that node, if that node exhibits this tag, we need to override the previous image to a new image. And that new image is going to be one of these. So pretty much saying, okay, if the tag is intro, use this image. If the tag is thinking, use this image. And the thing is, these are two different ways to get images. So this right here is taken straight from the internet because I'm able to copy paste this and view it from a URL inside of Google. But over here, these are local files, right? These do not exist on the internet. But it's very important that they're stored wherever the game is going to be run. So as you could see, previously, I actually had two different images folders. I had one in the Scratch because I like to use the test from here option. But if I use a test from here, I have to create a new thing that will appear in this folder. And if I'm going to be running the game from this folder, I need to make sure that there is an images folder here so that I can access that image from this line. And of course, if I just want to run the game from the base game in the stories option here, I must also have an images folder in here as well. Because let's say I didn't have this images folder and I deleted it and I ran this. Yeah, it would not show anything for the next couple pages, because and the only reason it shows something here is because this is from the internet. Right? This is not from a local file, but everything else is all local files, which pretty much means you need to have a reference to these files inside of your folders. But if I, let's say, reverted it back and I put the images back here, and then I open this up again, you'll see it's, oh, there we go. This is what we want. So yeah, that's the importance of local files comparison to online files for, I guess, CSS and I guess other languages too, if you ever run into that kind of stuff. But yeah. So, and also if you would like, you can change the text color and to like or to black or to be suitable for whichever background you have, because by default the text color I believe is just white, and if you ran it, it doesn't actually look, yeah, it's you can hardly even see the text here. So that's why I changed it to black for pretty much all of the backgrounds, just because it makes it look a lot nicer. Okie dokie. And yeah, so that's pretty much the basics for Twine, I would say. Let me just run through a lot of other things before I close off here. But I mean, yeah, this is just an extension of the storyline, but I believe I've actually covered everything here. Everything else is just an extension of the kinds of things that we talked about before. Like, okay, so let's say that we go into the, I'd like to talk to the deputy line. So let's try to start test from here, and then I'll delete all these other ones. And let's try to get to that node. So let's kind of speed run this a little bit. But do I already know? Who else knows about this? Can I speak to some of them? I'd like to talk to the deputy. Okay. So right here, as you can see, you've checked none of the places, which pretty much means that if you go into the node here, you'll see that, and there's a lot of stuff here, but if you find that you've checked none of the places, this means that all of the variables called enter bar, enter station, and enter donut, they are all false, right? And the thing about the statements that I've created here is that, and I mean, it is kind of a jumbled mess. I do know that, but the reason that they're all close together is because otherwise they would create a lot of white space, and it would make it so that like this line, like these lines would like be appear like line after line after line, when it realistically it should just be one line getting replaced depending on the variables that are true and false. So let's say that I did enter the bar, and then I asked a nearby local if they've seen the deputy, and then I keep the conversation until the end, right? It would then change the statement to you've only been to the bar. And that's because if you look at here, once I finished that conversation, this variable became true, right? Because previously they were all false. And if I do the station, you'll see that we say, oh, we've also visited the bar and the station. There we go. That's two variables are true. Therefore, we do not account for any of the previous statements. And we go to the other option where you've said, okay, you've actually visited both the bar and the station, right? And the same is done for if you've visited the bar and the donut stop, or all three. But yeah, I think you get the gist there. But yeah, that is pretty much a core crash course into Twine. And this is most of the stuff that you should be doing for your kinds of projects. But yeah, in the next video, I will be getting more in depth into creating your own game, and just the kind of stuff that you may face, challenges that you may need to, I guess, solve or whatever. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video though.